our first show of Note Exchange, we have the amazing Siposengosi, also known as Laliboi on the streets. Welcome to Note Exchange with Outside Radio.
Nichada, thank you for having me.
Thank you
Yeah,
for joining us. I mean, I'm so excited to have you on our show. I mean, like I said to you, I'm like such a big fan. So thank you so much for being with us and taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's
Yes.
get into it. Culture. Siphengosi ngubani uLaliboy?
Laliboi. Well, Laliboi is every young kid from Ezlalini and who has like high dreams is phezulu eziphambeneyo, but there are just not enough resources, but not allowing lo meko leyo iba ibe sort of like the into eyakha the wall between yena and the ambitions and the goals that he wants to achieve. So Laliboi is actually a representation of umntana omgquba, you know yeah, from Lali to Josie.
So xa usithi Lali, usuka kweziphi ilali? What's your journey to the city?
uh I was born in Butterworth, eGcuwa. I'm from ilali yasesazilwane komkhulu. Yeah, and however I was not raised there, so my family moved to Joburg when we were very young, and then ndakhulela eJozi, but singabantu abagodukayo, qho kuDisemba semakhaya, and then but ubomi bu-based eJoburg. Yeah, and yeah, and went to Alwa North as well. Studied for like 3-4 years at Alwa North, and then came back to Joburg, and ever since I've been here in Joburg.
I mean, I asked this because my next question is why music? I'm sure your journeys in between Aloe North, Johannesburg, Foslo, played a
Yeah,
role in what you are into right now. So
yeah.
what music? What was it about music the first time? Okay, Jonga, I'm doing this.
It was the Alwa North teenage years, and we formed a Kwaito group, and we were inspired by TKZ, Mashamplane, and Bafitlile. Muff Town was on steroids those days. Yeah, and then we started a crew, and we called it Rush Hour, and we all had to write music. That's when I guess I discovered, but oh, okay, esisakhona sobhala sikhona noko, but sasi-kwi-infant stage at that time. So that's when it started, and I never looked back ever since.
What was the first song? Can you remember like the first rap or chorus that you guys did as a Rush Hour?
No, no, not at all, not at all. No, not at all. I
As
was
if
a side man, but I was more like a hype man. Like
oh,
about slash, but yeah, like that's calling out as into a because he's on the front line, and I was the youngest in the crew, so I was sort of like a hype man.
oh, that's cool. So when I'm dash, like, hey, that's a vibe. That's a vibe. And then also when we talk about the different influences in your journey and your musical career, your look your look is very different from anyone else's. It's very striking. I mean, bakhona obviously who are similar, but I think in the stream that you're in and what you're going for, you're very distinct. Uyabonakala ebantwini, like you shine. So
Yeah.
why was this visual representation important for you?
Uh, for me, it's more about Bantu lineage and coming to a realization that when Otatomkhulu stopped writing and started passing knowledge and information through Inzo, that is where like most codes, were actually hidden. And that for me made me realize, well, oh, actually, the culture nenhlalo yabantu is actually in the language. You use the language, you lose the culture, you use your identity, you lose everything. And that for me, what is like the foundation of Laliboi, and yeah. And again, if our forefathers have always been fashionable, come to think about it. They've always been on that stage. The hairstyles ezazenziwa ngabantu amasunza, isiyendane, amahlubi, they have beautiful hairdos, man. And and keeping that alive, I guess, is very fulfilling to the spirit.
And I also think it's important, like you said, for continuation of our heritage, of our cultures, language, buntu betu, sintu setu. It's important that we, as the young people, carry it out. And just to go back a little bit, since you said culture and your forefathers are an inspiration to who you are right now. Where because I mean, I'm from the city, Wasekapa, Bakwalanga, I know, Buchule Bakwalanga, and as I grow older, I get to find out more and more about just beyond the city, what's happening in the city. When you seem to have been able to get those nuggets very early, when was it, where you were like, okay, and all of that?
It was a process. It was a process. I remember at some point I was fascinated by the Hindu culture at some point in my life, and the concept of race and everything around it did not exist, but I guess that was just a phase, because I guess that I was finding myself as well. But when I returned to the African, concept of when I was forced to return, because xa ukhuliswe ngendlela ethile ekhayeni, you can ungabaleka and try explore other avenues, but you'll always come back home. And for me, coming back home meant spending more time with my elders. And indlela indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili,
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess that being submissive, and even because ezinye izinto zethu mos ngamabali zintsomi, like ezenzi sense, but they are taught in that fashion because they're supposed to be parables, and it is for our responsibility to unpack those things. So it was through that then, I guess, and that's not pendulile, but yeah.
Yes, no, you're pendula. So, City, you only rap in his Xhosa. Why so? Why are there other languages that you rap in besides English, of course?
No, I don't rap in English at all. Xhosa and Tsotsitaal. Township, Johannesburg, Fanagalo inspired type of Tsotsitaal with a little bit of Afrikaans as well. For me, that world is very, very fascinating. Come to think of how, Otatomkhulu came from different provinces around the country, and Batibane's mind and this language had to be formed so that they could be able to hear each other and at the same time be able to communicate with the white man. And that for me is a very wonderful experience that shows, but at some point tribalism was sort of like diffused. There were attempts, zikhona into ezenzeka ezezazama ubulala tribalism, and so yeah.
So when you say you rap in Tsotsitaal, in Xhosa, etc., like who was probably like your first example of this before you started putting pen on paper?
Uh, First inspiration was uButsolani Mkiva.
Mm.
So for the longest time sasimamela sikhula kumanyelwa utata uMzakhe Mbuli, right? The people's poet. And then Mandela comes out of prison, and then there's this guy who ends up lento kaBram Mbule, but in a totally different way, and it's just Xhosa, and he was doing it everywhere, Aputata Waisiakoda, all around the world, anga compromise, in Germany, he would say it the way it is, and people would clap, being umvanga nobutin, that for me was sort of like that thing, yeah, to come, oh, flip, then it's Xhosa, noma umuntu I understood what they meant xa besithi isiXhosa sitolikwa, because simandi noba ungasivi uba sithini kodwa sitsho khona, and that for me, yeah, he was the one who put Zoran Mkiva. And then when I entered the Kwaito space, I was inspired then by my Gash. I really enjoyed my Gash. I enjoyed Bram Thomas Silela, Easy, and then the Bafitli Cats came into the picture, Twister, Double HP. Oh man, those were legends for me. I guess those are the cats that really played a huge role into my rapping. I never really honestly listened to American hip hop, I won't lie. And not that I have anything against the culture, but I guess even the language maybe influenced the direction and the thought.
And talking about these guys and their music, what was your music journey from like your very first offering until now? How would you describe that timeline of your musical journey, your sound, some of the choices you made along the way?
Hey, it's been a very, very interesting journey, I must say. Because after the Kwaito experience, and then I went into a space, rock and roll. So which was like a huge shift from Kwaito and having to play alternative music and rock. So we started a band when I got to Joburg. I left Alwa North, and then I came to Joburg, and we started a band, and we called it Impandeko. And Impandeko, it was a collective of young cats who were just playing experimental music. We were just experimenting with sound, and that's when I learned rock and roll. And then when I went to school to formally study music, I studied jazz. So that as well, now you're adding those, and having to meet and listen to Tatu Zimnawane with Zimology. He had already, found his own sound, and he was pushing a philosophy, and he was teaching us as far as Zindwan. And meeting him as well was a huge privilege, because I guess he's the one who gave me the key. Yoba, fear not, if you can breathe, you can blow, you can talk, you can say whatever. So technicalities of the art form must not limit you from expressing lento engaphakathi kuwe. And he gave me that, and Johnny Mekwa, the late Johnny Mekwa. So I guess I was really fortunate to have met like these legends, unsung heroes, because abantu abaninzi really bebengabazi, uyabona. And these are the cats who contributed largely to the music industry on an international platform, even, So uNcanca apho contributed to lento endiyo namhlanje.
And then what would you describe your sound now being like eventually ufikile apha? What are some of the sounds you would describe your sound to be?
I don't know. I really don't know. I hear it depends on the producer. It depends on, particularly speaking about Siyangaphi, particularly Siyangaphi. Siyangaphi, spoke is very futuristic in terms of his ideas. He always thinks forward. And now, when we met, I came with the history, and we fused future and the past, and then kwazalwa Siyangaphi. Whereas, you know, kwezinye projects I feed off production, the producer, the feeling, and what's the story, what's sithini, sifuna uncokola sithini, what's the story, lithini ibali. And then that sort of like shapes can go with the style of the music, you know.
Because
Yeah,
even there's like a little bit of rock and roll going on there. Like I
yeah,
find when I listen to music, there's like a lot of variations, which I personally like. I think it's really cool to show your different talents as an artist. You know, I think that's really great. And then you also play instruments, right? Trumpet, guitar,
yeah.
and pasayo.
This is it too. This is, yeah, I just play around and say just for fun.
Masibizi nabo nazo kaloku ngeziphi ezo.
Saxophone and the trombone.
Oh, that's dope. That's super dope. Being able to play instruments, being able to like do a young composition, how has that helped you in your own musical journey, like your own personal projects? How has that created sort of an edge for you when you create music?
Uh, I think that when I think umuntu xa esithi uyaqala ufunda umculo, it's very important to uqala noba uthi kuthiwa uyarepha, but it's important uba ufumane music instrument, because a music instrument sort of like teaches you the laws of lento yenzayo. You know, there are scales, there's all of that, and these are the tools ozisebenzisayo xa usenza umculo, you know. And again, the beat on its own has a voice, you know, and before you can lay any lyrics on top of a beat, you need to understand first what the beat is saying. So knowing how to compose with a music instrument enables you now to understand, you know, is the significance of silence within the music and all those dynamics. So it's very, very important. It's very important, and it opens you up. I'll be limited to a specific genre. Yeah.
That's cool. How often do you compose your own music before going into studio?
How often do I compose my own music?
Yes, like if you have ideas, like how often do you do it by yourself?
I do it all the time. All the time. All the time. Because, you know, and most of the time so I sleep very, very late. So I work ebusuku most of the time. You know, and now option yobanza Siyangaphi. I'm just stuck in the house with my guitar and my instruments, and that's where I guess I get the time to create. So just lay mhlambe guitar and think of melodies and lay horns, and now what's the story, and then I write lyrics. I don't have to finish it same time, but like quite a little project mhlambe of that song, I'll develop the ideas. Some ideas can take something like 2 to 3 months, you know, because again, it becomes heavy if I source from my own ideas. So it's very important for me to every now and then go out there and hang with the people and listen to conversations and check the current state of mind, and then go back home and retell that story emculweni.
When we go into Usiagapi, why Siyangaphi? What's the overall story behind that album?
Oh, Siyangaphi, well, it's just asking vele uba siya kweyiphi direction, right? But Siyangaphi again ligama likakhokho ozala utatomkhulu. So he was a trumpeter during the World War II, but he was playing in the military. So he's one of the few soldiers ababuya bephila in the country. And he was the first one to play the trumpet, but I did not know that until kufika umakhulu apha eGauteng coming from the Eastern Cape. And she saw the horn and she was like, yo, nansi lento edlalwa ngutata zala wam. And in my head, it was like, oh, okay, snap. So it's no coincidence that I'm playing this thing. So Siyangaphi is actually honoring him for the gift for that part of, my talent, I guess. So he gifted. I feel that he imparted that to me. Yeah. And as a project, Siyangaphi is meant to evoke a conversation about isizwe samaXhosa, isinesizwe sabantu in general. Uba amaXhosa ngobani, imbali yamaXhosa ithini, because exesheni elininzi imbali yakwantu is always told from a British perspective. We never had our own writers ababibhala. Those who did, izincwadi zabo zazibhenwa, like utata uMqhayi wabhala iincwadi ezininzi that were banned and that were telling the story from our side. So Siyangaphi is reminding isizwe of that, and actually saluting and honoring figures such as utata Professor Ncedile Sawule, ongumbhali incwadi omkhulu kakhulu. He's amazing. He's currently nje, the man nje odume entloko right now. His style of writing, content. I just love the man. He's amazing. And also Siyangaphi celebrates him as well and his work, So it's a project that's meant to spark a conversation around isizwe samaXhosa and our heritage and ubukhosi bakwaXhosa, and everything beautiful about our people.
I really love the album. Like it does make me think of our people and some of the sounds like that. Like when I said to my mom the other day, yo, don't burn in like Cheba, Kewotulwe, like the small things, that we take for granted. And then when you listen to some music or hear something and it evokes that memory, like your Siyangaphi is one of those. I even like with the album cover with the I don't know, I'm just going to interpret it as I would interpret it, the ancestors in the background, because are they people, because they're not in full, so badala bahleli abasijongileyo, like all of I was just like, this is my heart. I really love the references. And going into so we're going to talk about two songs. I really love the album, and it's like the same as I said earlier. You can tell by like those, i-chorus, ngoma zomcimbi, just nje, because you have that energy in both of the songs. So the first one is Emonti, right? What's the story there? Wenzeni lamfazi. So you point.
Man, Emonti is inspired by you know, there's this thing, I mean, if more, okay, we're more especially here in Joburg, you know, you'd find they say, Joe, amantombazana amaXhosa aya dangerous, yabo, thandimali, and all of that. And for me, I felt like, I don't know, man, it's a very bad stigma, yabo. So and with that and feminists and actually women fighting for their own voices, and I felt like, oh, okay, that woman ohlale ethethwa kakubi ngayo, if she were to speak for herself, but why enza like
Mm.
and so that song is more of like uzifaka ezihlangwini zakhe and just say, yo, no, they don't see the surface. This shit is deep, it's deep. I don't do what I do because I'm uneducated, and this is the case. And it sparks a conversation, because for a woman to be like that, a man is responsible, and it's not just one man. It's plenty of them who keep on making these empty promises, and it's very easy to lose yourself in the process. So yeah, it was just me attempting to say to tell the story from Unambita's perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
first, when I first listened to the song, because Dine told me her surname was Khalifa, and I was just like, oh my
Oh.
gosh, thinking about my friend.
ndisebenza njengemali qha nangona nje ndingakhe nditha ndaze yaze kuyase kube nini na ndicindisa ndithengisa ngomsimba erhawutini na.
I was like, oh no, Nandi, what did she do? And then I heard, no, but Nambita. I was like, okay, it's not her. That song for me is like, I don't know, there's like something like super spiritual about that song. There's something very 3D inside my soul about it, if I can put it like that. Yeah, holistic,
Yeah.
What made you guys, because I mean, you worked with Spook My Tambo on this album. You
Yeah.
worked with him throughout. What made you guys do the vocals, the intro vocals, the chant, before you start doing the rap, and then like it keeps coming back, the chorus per se, man, let me put it like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
What made you guys think, okay, like this would be really cool to create this image that we're trying to depict here, because it's like you said, like it's putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and the deep story that some people are going through,
Yeah.
and why those choices?
No, before we started recording the album, it's challenging conversations, about different concepts. And again, it boils back to istory sabantu basembo. So that's the subject really that is fascinating. Most of the time, Castibanas, we always talking about that. With Ntwana, is really the sort of song, yo, Ntwana am, So it was that vibe, and we decided, no, man, let's take this thing and siyibeke in a contemporary fashion, siyenze ibe digestible emntwini ozalwa emntwini ozalwa kweli xesha langoku, Yeah, but the inspiration mainly behind the project iqale laa nto kwi-conversations and ne-position yethu esikuyo as isizwe sakwantu, and realizing that no one is going to save our culture, no one's going to do that for us. we have to do that ourselves, and we're standing in a very advantageous position because we are artists, we are musicians, we have a voice. So why not use our voices in a constructive way that's going to contribute in the building process, or the rebuilding process, or the restoration process of our culture.
And then what are some of the samples maybe on the song that you guys took from, like some spaces, some like previous songs you've heard before that worked well with this track?
Kukho there's a band, I don't know, Baba, is it Kaelicha Choral Singers?
Okay.
But they had nowhere to be found. So we Googled them as Bafuman. I don't know where Spook managed to find like the songs. But with the more you try to find out Babapi, Abafumaneki online. And that was good. But we thought, yo, no, man, let's just, let's take this and develop from that and see where we can go with it, And yeah, Joe, umculo wamaXhosa umnandi gqithi. Great. And awukho linear, so diverse, ninzi, ninzi.
And then moving on to the second song, Somandla.
Yeah.
Somandla, it's the same energy but different sound. What's the story behind that one? Let's spell it out.
Somandla is a worship song, praise and worship song, but iyangxengxeza, iyabulela at the same time, kodwa iyacela again, Somandla again is, in terms of sound and melodical approach, Somandla is attempting to remind or to bring back the concept of Christianity back home. Because now there's this common thing, ubuKristu buyinkolo yase Europe. And yet that is not entirely true. The firstborns in Christ were in Ethiopia. And the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian Church has been sort of like buried under. No one is talking about that. And of course, kwaXhosa, we've had, prophets who have tried to awaken our people, like the prophet Unsikana Gaba and Mamunontetha Nkwenkwe, no Josiah Mgijima, the leader of ibandla lamaSirayeli. And they also were they were massacred. I think in 1935, I guess, 148 congregants were massacred. And the gospel there was that the people that we read about in the Bible, they are not white, they are not Arabics, but they were black people just like me and you. And that conversation has always been suppressed by the former apartheid government and the missionaries of that time. So Usomandla is also an attempt now to remind our people that uThixo is not a foreign concept in doing. I don't know if I'm making sense. Yeah, but that was the inspiration and behind the song.
I mean, would the rhetorics of, like, because I was reading a paper randomly because I was just researching like ancestral Umukobe, ancestral Ubungoma, just put it out in Graftown and the journey of that, and then in one of the articles, this guy referenced the idea of Amata, like we've always had a God, God has always existed amongst us. I don't know if that's on the same wavelength, what you say. Moving on to Uqam. First, when I saw Uqam, right, I was like, a Khoisan reference, with the clicks. Wenzani ngoku, Laliboi, I was like really interested. But then again, and I'm is on Bandcamp for the
Yeah.
people. And then when I read the description where you speaking about healing, using music as a form of healing, it made sense because Siyangaphi already you reawakening certain questions, certain feelings, going back to where you come from, and going back is always I think it's a cathartic experience. So like that's another like
Yeah.
sense of thing, so with the clown it was really interesting that you took that a step further. Do you care to explain that process through the whole EP?
Yeah, well, Uqam was a risky move. Well, I always risk, I guess, but Uqam was more like, well, yo, okay, hey son, and then Lana senzani manje ntwana yami, because was no beat to rely on, so we had to create from scratch, and that was the challenging part, I guess, to say, okay, now the instruments are gonna be live, and again, what are we talking about? Because it was inspired by the whole thing, a mental illness, and how we as African people deal with it is totally different from how the Westerners deal with it. For us, umntu xa eqala egula ngengqondo kuba kunento ezininzi, uthakathiwe or no unobizo, or there's always, it's never about bipolar level 1, level 2, it's totally different. So I was exploring that space now, Kuqam, which was very, very interesting. Because the guy the abantu bendisebenze nabo phaa, like Sol Nossel, is from an alternative rock space, how and Morena Liraba as well. He's really into the culture yesisuthu, and he's just deep into that, and it was, it surprised me, man. It's one of the projects really that I'm grateful for, because even though Tusa, and yet, speaking of Clam, it's gonna be released now formally and on all digital platforms, streaming platforms, but the dates are not yet confirmed. But it's gonna be out. It's gonna come out. People will be able to access Clam on all platforms, not only just on Bandcamp.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Do you think also being an independent artist allows you to explore more different variations? Because like how I said, Okam was more, it gave me a very rock feel to it.
Yeah.
If you were to on like a major, as they call it on your musical streets, would you be allowed to explore and create as freely?
No, I doubt. Nah. That, I guess that's the beauty of being independent, because you are able to reflect your environment sincerely without really manipulating the consumer, or maybe leading people astray just for the sake of making money, So the whole thing of being independent really is the future, man. It's the present yet again, Yeah, it's the way to go.
No, I totally agree. And even if, like this outside music, if you want to, like, people like, you build a business, not everyone can build a business, but you can, especially if you're in a privileged space, that you can do it, man. Like, do your own thing, be your own boss.
Yeah.
I always believe in that without saying too much. Be your own boss,
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke on the phone about some of the projects that you have lined up. I don't know, can you speak about them? Are they still hush hush? Ziyeke sivale aphi interviews thini?
Yeah, well, there's this re-release of Ukam this year definitely, and there's a project that's also coming that I did with. I think it's gonna be a single. I did with Pratapelo, who was a former, who still is a member of Stimel. So was really exciting experience really to share like a studio with a legend and just learning, man, how to tell a South African story better, you know. Yeah, because bra kumnandi eMzansi, like we have, I don't know, man, imnandi le nto sinayo, big time, imnandi le nto sinayo, but it's just that we need to utilize these tools ukuthi abasishiyele zona laba beze before team. Yeah, and that single is gonna come out, and Branana Coyote also released. There's an album that's gonna be released. Branana Coyote, the late vocalist Estimela and I. So they managed to feature in one of the songs, but as a trumpeter, though, and it's which is very exciting. Yeah. So I think it's gone. That is this is stuff for Pume this year. So and then there's another EP, if not an album, I'm not sure, that I did with CGS. It's also ready. It's coming out now September. So it's gonna be busy in J starting from next month. Yeah. A lot of music is gonna drop.
Oh, that's nice. That makes me happy that there's a lot happening on your plate. Thank you so much for coming on Note Exchange on Outside Radio. I really
Yep.
appreciate your time. Like I said earlier on, this was really great. I mean, I'm going to go back and Google some names that you've dropped in this interview. Expand
Yeah.
a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've learned so much. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
You
Is
were.
there Are there any last words you'd like to leave with the audience before we are officially gone?
Yes. Language. Language. Um, let's speak our own languages. Sithethwa amalwimi ethu and sibhale nangawo, and isikakhulu kubaculi, who still aspire to, to ukuba ngabaculi professionally. I would say you don't have to uba ngumuntu owazi isilungu. Sorry about that. Owazi isilungu gqithi okanye, you don't have to do that. Just tell your story the way singakhona. Just tell your story, man. Your identity is yours. Nobody else shares your identity. Unguwe, and the world wants to know, who you are. So yeah, that's what I can say. Just be yourself and not compromise, man.
That's dope. Those are good last words.
Yeah.
To everything, thank you so much. I'll have Laliboi's links in the description, and thank you for watching.
You're welcome. Yebu.